Today we have two very well-known authors, Dato Mohammed Hussein and Liyana Marzuki, and we are going to talk a little bit about Dato's book and also get Liyana to kind of respond to some of the issues that we have here. I'm not sure how many of y'all have already read the book, or still okay. Rest of y'all are going to read the book soon, right? So I first came across the book a couple of months ago, and I was really impressed because I found the book really is illustrating some of the key issues that I myself have felt. That Malaysia is a country of missed opportunities. That we could have done so much better in so many different areas. And Dato's book, I think, illustrated some of them very well. From before Merdeka up to today. And I think looking forward, Malaysia will be 100 years in about 30 plus years. So as we look forward to Malaysia at 100, what kind of country do we want it to be? And are we again going to have missed opportunities in building that country? Or can we take advantages of the opportunities that we have here to make it the country that we want to be? So these are some of the topics that we want to discuss today. So to kick it off, I want to ask Dato some questions, right? I mean, Dato, this is your second book, right? And I think that you wrote your first book, and then you decided to write your second book. What made you decide to write about this book? What was your motivation?
Okay. I mean, most people write books out of inspiration. In my case, it's not so much inspiration, but rather frustration and to some extent anger. Here we are, almost 67 years into our independence, with only about 34 years to go before we celebrate our 100th year as an independent nation. And where are we, I ask myself, in respect of the aspirations of our forefathers when they founded this country in 1957. Don't forget, we were at one time on the verge of greatness. We were a role model for many emerging countries, both Southeast Asian countries as well as in other parts of the world. Also a role model for many Muslim countries as a modern Muslim nation, having a good balance between development and pursuit of spiritual thoughts. And then suddenly we, in our haste to develop, we took shortcuts, and we begin to see erosions of values, corruption, and breakdown in the check and balance in our system that our forefathers have set up. So our progress started to halt, to falter. Our values eroded, with corruption in Malaysia being the headlines all over the world, given the scale of it. We fell from grace. This is a country that only 20 years ago was seen as an emerging tiger. So I asked myself, what went wrong? What went wrong? What I did was, I projected also that I harped on the theme that we're going to, in one generation, 37 years, we'll be celebrating 100 years as an independent nation. What have we got to show for it? Because we are still grappling with lingering issues that have plagued us since independence about race, religion, basically lack of harmony between the races. Okay? So that's what prompted me, Prem, to write this book. But there was one big problem though. This book is in a way about history. I'm not a historian. In a way, this book is about politics. I'm not a politician, thank God. It's also about Islam. I'm neither an Islamic scholar. I have never spent a single day in a madrasah. And when I attended religious classes in school, I recall I spent most of the time reading comics in the back of the room. And I always have a problem with the ustads. And I write about economics, but I'm not a trained economist. So I have to make sure that nobody laughs at my book. Because along the way, I met the son of one of Malaysia's most foremost historian, the son of Professor Koo K. Kim, Edin Koo. So he looked at my first draft and he said, MH, get your facts right. Otherwise, people will laugh at you. So I spent about 6 years altogether with a break in between. I will tell you later why there was a break in between. Doing research, went to the National Library, went to the archives here, then going to London, spent quite some time in London at the British Museum and the archive. And I was lucky because, the British, they're very disciplined about declassification of government material. The British, after I think 30 or 25 years, they declassified documents and you open it to the public. So I was able to read even cabinet papers, especially about the time, and this goes back even up to the 1900s. You can go back as far as you want to. They digitize everything, so you can just read about. I could read about cabinet meeting where they discuss about independence from Malaya. So I was able to get the British viewpoint about events in Malaysia. All this while most of the books of history were written at a time when that information was not available. So I got a fresh perspective which I'm really happy to share. But of course, it has to be tempered with good judgment, because again, these are the British perspective, so I have to be careful with what I write. So that's it. This book is about my take of history, and I've only one purpose for this book. This relates back to our having only 33 years before we celebrate 100 years. Whatever we need to change, this book is written for the young generation, because whatever we need to make changes, that responsibility is on the shoulder of the young generation, the current generation. 33 years, mind you, is not a long time. It is as long as a period that we gave ourselves to implement Vision 2020. Vision 2020 was launched in 1990 up to 2020, 30 years. And you see what happened to that vision. We have that same period to make Malaysia a country that fulfill the aspirations of our forefathers when they established Malaya. So I hope what I want basically is just to create awareness among the new generation and also the current generation of the issues facing us, and more important, the historical perspective of these issues. I'm pleasantly surprised that many of my friends who are maybe about my age, even not quite, say maybe 10 years, my colleagues rather, said when they read the book, they were surprised at many of these events because they were not aware of it. So I hope that sense of learning will also be experienced by you when you read the book. But again, like I say, take it with a pinch of salt, because I'm not a historian. Validate what I read, but feel free to seek clarification when we come to Q&A later. Right?
Yeah, thanks, Dato. I think that's really good introduction to some of your motivations. The only challenge is that I think for young people, the question is whether they're reading books or whether we have to convert this book into a TikTok. Maybe you have to dance and sing a little bit, and then they will, hear the book a bit more. But anyway, for those who perhaps have not really gone deep into your book, in a short thing, is there one single thread that you see running through the 7 missed opportunities? Why, and if there's one thing you want to pick out that we should remember, so that we change our path ahead, what would that be?
Just one point, to add to what you said about whether people will read the book. When I first wrote this, I approached one publisher, and he said, MH, Malaysians read only 2 kind of books sell in Malaysia. One is cerita seram, horror story. The other is love story. My book is a special interest. So you wrote a similar book. Liyana wrote a book, Jangan Pura Otak, Jangan Pajak Otak. So she would have that experience as well. So you're right, it is a challenge to get people to read. What was the question again?
Is there one thing that a common thread through the book that we should remember in terms of why this missed opportunity?
The book is the big title is How Malaysia Missed 7 Chances at Nation Building, but the subtitle is actually more important. Can we learn from them? But this book, the thickness of the bulk of the book is about looking back, which I call reflections. And the purpose of looking back is just to see what did we do wrong and learn from it, so that when we go into what I cover in the second part of the book, aspiration, we learn from the mistake of the past. So would I be giving away too many things if I were to? No.
Pick one thing.
Pick one thing. Well,
pick one.
I will pick.
That's like a taster for them.
I will pick one thing, but I will express it in 2 ways. One is the Muslim way of it, the Muslim perspective. Let me quote the Quran that demonstrate that maybe heighten the common thread. No, I will do the non-Muslim way first. We must not take shortcuts. If there's a common thread, if we think why we have missed, that's because the common thread is we took shortcuts. We want to do things fast. We don't address the fundamental. We took shortcuts. Essentially, that didn't lead to a sustainable success, and which is the problem that we have right now. We have a lot to show in terms of physical structure, success, but in terms of substance, I think we have issues there, and that's because we took shortcuts. If the Muslim narrative is ayat 5 and 6 of Surah Al-Sharia, wa inna ma'al usri usra, inna ma'al usri usra. These 2 verses I'll translate later. These 2 verses are the only 2 verses that are repeated immediately, consecutively. Many verses in the Quran are repeated at various times, but these 2 verses repeated consecutively. Verse 5 and 6 of what it means is, surely after hardship come success. The literal translation is surely toil and perseverance. The message is toil and perseverance lead to success. In other words, susah dulu, suffer first, work hard first, success come later. Whereas many when I talk about shortcut, many people want to take the shortcut of senang immediately, avoid susah. The book expands on that. I will not expand it now, but I will leave it to you to find out what I meant by that. But that is the common thread.
Thank you.
Common thread. We must not take shortcuts.
Yes, no shortcuts. Malaysia is very famous. You see no entry sign one way, tapi you see parking pun tak apalah, shortcut sikit. It's a Malaysian way. Thank you so much, Dato. Going over to Liyana. Liyana, what did you find interesting in the book? And having written yourself, what are some of the reflections that you would like to share?
Thank you, Prem. First and foremost, I would like to show my appreciation to Dato MPH and also Puan Mawarni for the invitation. I really received invitation to speak in English because I write on Facebook and social media in our Bahasa Kebangsaan, Bahasa Malaysia, and my podcast also is in BM, so it's a good training ground to be here today. Thank you to Dato MPH and also Puan Mawarni. I read this book, was given to me a month ago, and I finished it within 2 weeks' time. And I can tell you, this is one of the best books that I read post-pandemic. There's 3 points that I think I need to highlight about this book, the strength of it. Number one is the compilation of historical data, the facts and figures. I think that is the most compelling factor in this book, because you read history, you get A in SPM, you read history and you swallow all the facts, but there's no context to it when you do it last time. But in this book, what Dato has done, he gave the historical data, facts and figures with soul. So you have that perspective, you have that context, and it's really, really powerful. That's number one. Number two is that the power of storytelling in the book is very masterful. I read this book within that 2 weeks time. I remember I went to TRX for a dinner during weekend with my husband. So we took the MRT from Putrajaya to TRX, and I read the book in the train. And that page on the Declaration of Independence, Tengku Abdul Rahman, I literally cried in the train, and it's really, really, really rare for me to cry over a book, but this book really moved you and really touched your heart. So the power of storytelling is very masterful what Dato did in order for him to tell us the historical facts. That's number two. Number three is that even though the book literally convey to us the criticism, the bad part of history in our nation building, at the end of the page, at the last page, you can still feel the glimpse of hope. You can still feel inspired by it, that there's so much can be done for nation building. So I think that's the three factors. As a conclusion, I think this book, like what Dato said just now, I think will serve as a reminder to the future generation, including myself. I'm not too young, but including myself, that the do and don'ts and what can we learn from our past leaders, the mistake, so that we can be better. As the saying goes, people who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So this is the history we can learn. The 7 part, which is inclusive of Malaysia Baru and also Tan Sri Muhyiddin's time. Right? That's one part. But I think if there's a missed opportunity that I can explain, we are hoping for the current government to actually, do all the reforms promised to us. And if they have this chance now, 2/3 majority, the promise of reform, and they can't do it now, I think it will be another missed opportunity for Malaysia, current government.